First of all, as we continue, thank you, Wangari. As we continue, I would just like to welcome all of you once more. I ask that we turn off distractions, especially just check and make sure that you are muted. Okay, you can turn on your video. It's nice. It would be nice to see your faces and interact with you. And just to be able to be present here, if possible, if you are able to, have your pen and notebook. I have mine because I'm here to learn as well. And I'm also here to take down the things that you say. Then let's keep this interactive, and we will have an hour of engagement, and then the other hour, okay, now it's less than an hour. The rest of the time we're going to listen to your questions and answers, to listen to your questions and also to read your comments. However, if you have questions that you would like to ask anytime during the session, just go ahead and put it in the chat. I will keep my eyes open, and Wangari will also be on the lookout. So for those who do not know me, my name is Dr. Caro. I am a mom, I'm a psychologist. Okay, I have been practicing as a therapist. I'm transitioning to focus more on parent coaching and what we call psychotherapy in our field, where you do more of the giving information and maybe curating programs and things like that. So I'm really transitioning away from therapy, and I have a really good network of people that I work with that I send. So many people send children to me, but I have a good network of therapists in my space that I'm able to send them to. I'm the CEO of Stawi Camp for Wellbeing. We'll talk a little bit about what we do later, but basically we curate emotional wellness and parenting programs for children and their parents. Parents put in quotes, because again, like I said, parents for us is anyone who has children in their space. Our vision is to create a community, to cultivate a community of caring adults who are committed to creating spaces for all kinds of children to thrive. Ultimately, it's about creating an environment where children will thrive. And we know that when children thrive, then we have influenced the next generation. And so we break down complex concepts in psychology, in different spaces, to just be able to help people know that they can use these tools. These tools are not just the preserve of practitioners, that we can simplify these tools so that not everyone needs to go for therapy. However, there are those who need to go for therapy, and we are able to also help in directing you to that. But sometimes we find that we push people to be supported sooner than they really should be supported. And so if we are able to get those tools, those, that toolbox to be able to create the right environment for children to thrive, then it sieves out those who really need the help so that they can get that help. So that's what we do. Then just a little bit about Shalom, and I know she'll talk a little bit more about herself, but Shalom is the director of Ritro Group Limited. She runs life skills and leadership development programs in schools. She also runs wellness sessions online and within the corporate workspace. So all of you here who, run schools, are in schools, you're in the corporate space, please reach out to Shalom. She's passionate about seeing family lives transformed, especially through young people's interaction with the adults in their lives. There's such a gap. There is such a gap between generations. And so for me, Shalom is a friend, she's a colleague. We work in different spaces together. We volunteer, I send clients to her, and we have many conversations about families. And what really strikes me is her ability to connect the different generations. There's just that passion that runs in her that for me really stands out, and I'm excited to have her today to just talk about her experiences working with young adults and teenagers. I'm looking forward to learning. She has over 20 years experience working with children, teens, and young adults in various capacities. And I know that she will tell us more about that as we go on. The plan for this evening or this afternoon is to just unpack. If you received our first email to just inviting you here, is to really, we are going to talk about what are these things that teenagers and young adults bring into therapy, okay? So what is it that they bring into therapy? And we're going to unpack the why, like what's really going on. So we're going to look at the why behind the what. We'll also have an opportunity to talk about the programs that we are offering both at Ritro and at Stawicam. And then we will conclude with how do we support families? How do we help families be able to just get the tools that they need to help children in the different transitions. Our focus is not just children who have been teens or young adults who have been diagnosed with mental illness or who have been sent to therapy. Our focus will go beyond that, so that we ask ourselves, how can we provide the right environment for children to thrive? How can we also create spaces where adults and the younger generation are communicating? There's a lot of divide. There's a lot of the things that we are against each other, but we bring that out more than we bring out the commonalities, and the commonalities are actually more. And then now, how do we support? And then we will open it up for Q and A. Okay, so we'll get to that slide at a later time. I am so happy to be stopping this sharing. Most of the webinars I have, I'm sharing, and it's always nice to just have an opportunity to just not share a presentation. Before we get into it, let me just see if there's anyone here. Oh, okay. All right. There's someone who has written a private message that I will read later. Shalom, karibu sana sana. It's very nice to have you here.
Santi.
I have been looking forward, please spotlight Shalom as well. I have been looking forward to these conversations. We have had many conversations outside of this, and I am looking forward to how this will unfold. Let's have an open mind and let us just, now we have those emojis, we can celebrate and welcome Shalom as we invite her into this
Thank you.
Yeah, so we just want to dig right in, Shalom. Just tell us little bit about, not a little bit, as much as you want, about what you do and why.
Wow. You know, Simon Sinek tells us to start with why.
Okay.
So probably I should start with why. I think you have actually mentioned it. There's a huge gap between generations. There's a huge gap between children and their parents, you know, young adults and their parents, with grandparents. You know, there's a lot of misunderstanding, if I may call it that, in between generations, and that gap is actually growing bigger and bigger. Now, for me, I have been able to see and reap the benefit of having that connection. And therefore, my biggest why is just to see families bond and communicate with each other as they ought to, you know, despite all the problems that they have. So what I do basically is run programs, as you said. I have different programs that I run at the different levels of the clientele that I work with. So I do parenting sessions, and this can be institutional. So sometimes I'm invited to schools, workplaces. We had something the other day for Mother's Day for mothers in an organization. So just to help the parents along that parenting space. And then there's some sessions that I organize on my own. Then secondly, there's schools, you know, places where we'll work with schools, and I go and support children, parents, and teachers, just to get the three parties, you know, to basically work together. So that's a lot of what I do. So life skills program, I run life skills programs. I do the parenting programs. I have books that I've written that speak when I'm not speaking. They speak on my behalf. So I'm an author also. And yes, so generally I love on families and support where I can. And as a therapist, of course, I also have therapy sessions that I do one-on-one or even family therapy. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I know I started off as a therapist, and the gap there was children come into my space, I do what I need to do with them. Children are open, malleable, very easy to influence. And then they go back to the same environments again that contributed. And I think this has just become like a chorus I sing all the time when I talk about how I started. And therefore then doing the programs was more as a result of figuring out how then can I support parents, those who are bringing the children there, to be able to sort of stop enough of them coming for therapy and just give them those skills. And I don't know if for you that was also a factor, a motivator for you.
Yes, well, it is a big deal because you see, children cannot remove themselves from spaces where they're not thriving, right? So like you're saying, we'll do a session with them, and it wasn't even therapy as much as the life skill sessions. So I've got examples of children who were not allowed to do housework at home, as in literally they're not allowed to do chores. And they would come for my camps. And of course, when I'm running my camps, everybody has to work. I mean, you have to wipe your table, you have to clean up after yourself, etc. And I remember this young boy who, that was the first time. He was about 9 years old. It was the first time he had ever cleaned a table. The first time he had ever washed dishes. He didn't even know how that works. And so he had so much fun. It was a sleepover camp, so to speak, you know? And he had so much fun doing it. He learned something new. And when we came back, it was in Thika, and when we came back to Nairobi and he was picked up, he went telling the auntie, Nani, you know, he was so excited, and he was telling her, now I'm going to be helping you in the kitchen. And she came and told me, you need to go and tell this boy not to do that. Because if he dares to come and do any housework, I will get fired. You know, that's one example. Another one, we had some girls. I'm one of those DIY kind of people. So I don't believe that a girl should be stuck with her car and wait as a damsel in distress when it's just a flat tire. So there's a camp where we taught girls, boys alike to change tires. And this 12-year-old one time gets stuck with a mother. And they have a flat tire, and the kid says, okay, mom, let's bring the stuff, I'll change the tire. And the mom says, of course, you don't know what to do. You know, how would you know how to change a tire? I don't know how to change a tire. And she says, we were taught at the Ritro kids camp. And the mom was offended because I'm teaching her daughter not to be a lady. You know, she's supposed to be raising a lady. How dare I teach her to change tires? So what I'm trying to say is children do not have full control of the environment where they're growing. And yes, those may be extreme examples, but if we work with a child to improve them and then they go back home and that is undone, it can be a bit frustrating. So that's actually one of the things that informed the parenting talks. Before even the books came about, what I did was start talking. And then we would talk, and then of course we never finished. Like today we'll run out of time, I'm 100% sure. So what we did was just put the information in a book so that at least we can continue sharing this information as we go. So yes, parents not being able to support children, especially in this day and age the way they needed to, was a big gap that we were identifying. And then we looked for ways to support it. Because I feel, even I have made, oh my God, humongous mistakes with my children, right? But any parent willing to try, then it's possible to get help. Yeah. But when you're rigid and cannot, because that's where the biggest problem has been. When you find a parent who's rigid, then it becomes hard to help the child fully. Yeah, so psychoeducation, I love what you do at Stawi, because then at least the parent can come and work on themselves. Yeah, so it really helps.
Yeah, it makes a difference. And yeah, I think, again, it makes a bigger difference when you influence the parent.
The parent, yes.
Because now they're the ones with X number of children. Yeah. But also one of the things I know that we do is really help parents in a very gentle way, even see why the rigidity could be there. So
it's coming from somewhere, you know. They were also a child once. So
exactly.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in the spirit of that, then help us understand, because you see children. I send a lot of teens to you.
Yes, thank you.
and young adults, and so I just was wondering, what are these issues that they are bringing into therapy?
Wow, it's should I say multi-layered? because they come in with anxiety, with depression. That's now on the mental side. They have a drug and alcohol issue. They could be delinquent. They're running away from home or school and things like that. They're sexually curious. There's self-harm and suicidal ideation. I mean, there's lots of things that would actually be the ones that let the kid into the room or the young adult into the room, right? Mm-hmm. But it is after conversations that we find what is really going on. And they get to deal with whatever is underlying. So, I mean, like today we have a lot of sibling rivalry happening at another level.
Yes.
There was a time.
Yes.
It's become vicious.
Yeah.
It's become vicious. Yeah. And I think the more resources parents have, like you have more resources and less children, there's a lot of, should I say, spoiling that's happening, and kids are getting away with a lot. And then by the time they get into teenhood, they have basically done a bit of adult life without being adults, mm-hmm. right? They have phones at a level that you never had when you were growing up. And this thing of our days and, back in our days or when I was your age, you see, it's not working. We are raising children in a different age, but we are unable to close that gap. So when they come with these issues, you find somebody brings a child who has been self-harming, and now self-harming is actually both in boys and girls. It's no longer just a girl's thing. So when they come in, parents is likely to say, my child cannot harm themselves. What are they thinking? Harming themselves. If they're Christian, it's even worse because they start casting out demons before understanding what's going on in this child's life. So yes, those are the issues that are coming in. They have snuck drugs and alcohol into school, or they're doing it too much and losing jobs. There's young adults who are losing their jobs as a result of drug use and abuse. Yeah, crazy things happening at sleepovers, both delinquency and interaction and overuse of drugs, sexual curiosity and experimentation. Right now, practically everything is permissible sexually. And so they're at the stage where they can try whatever they want, how they want, when they want, with whomever they want. And we are getting to a place where parents are feeling helpless. Like, what do I do? And so they bring them to therapy. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I must say that I see happening is that many people think you're bringing the child to therapy for the therapist to fix them. Mm-hmm. Therapists don't fix children. Therapists will not fix teens, will not fix young adults, will not even fix the adult themselves. My greatest success stories are when the person coming in does the work. Mm-hmm. Because you see, they're the ones who are living the life. So if they come and anxiety is the thing that they're having, then we give exercises or some help, some support with anxiety, and they go and try out what they've been asked to do. Then, of course, when they come back, they're better. They get braver, they get stronger. We are building resilience through this process. With young people, teenagers and children, there's a lot of psychoeducation that happens, which means we're educating them on how things work. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of that for adults also, where once people realize who they are, what makes them tick, and they look at some of the things that have influenced where they are at, then they do the work. I need to insist on, you need to actually do the work. You need to go and try. You need to go and dare. You need to speak to yourself differently. You need to love yourself differently. If it's a getaway, like for young adults who are in the workspaces, sometimes I recommend that they just get away, switch off, get off social media, just get offline, put your phone away, take a break. There's some who are in very, very good jobs, so can afford holidays, right? So you find there's somebody who's 23 years old, their first job, they're earning 150 to 200,000 because they're in a certain industry. Can they afford to pay for themselves to go on a holiday? And then just go take a break, connect with nature, find a friend. So I see that much as all of this is happening, and they look like they're connected, they're also disconnected. Because they connect on the phone, they're not having people, live humans that they're connecting with regularly. Yes, we may argue that it's happening in school or it's happening in the workplace, but that's another source of stress because they have certain deliverables there. So all of those are what are coming. They're the symptoms they're the immediate wound, the visible, tangible wounds that we can see until we dig a little bit deeper.
Yes, and I think that's the one that we are curious about, to see what are some of the things you're discovering when you dig deeper. But I hear you. You know, self-harm is high as well. I have also experienced it with children and with parents who are bringing their children, and sometimes we always look at self-harm as just, you know, maybe, you know, the wrist, you know, here, you know, whatever.
No, not anymore.
Yes, but there's a lot more. And with what I've seen with boys, self-harm actually shows up in terms of when they're banging their heads in anger, in frustration, banging against the wall, and they actually harm themselves. But sometimes we see that we see it more in girls, and we think it's only girls who experience it. I don't know if you've had an experience with boys who are self-harming as well.
Yes, they are. And like you're saying, there's the one that they'll bang themselves on the wall, but they have also discovered that cutting helps. Mm-hmm. You see, because there is value in self-harm. You know, all of these things that are coming, there's a value, there's a plus, there's a positive that makes it work for them. So boys have also discovered that cutting actually helps. And then because the institutions have discovered the wrist, now they have gone to cutting elsewhere. So they cut on thighs, they cut on the crack of the buttock, you know, right at the back of the bum, like a place that's, you know, they cut further up on the arm. So there's places where they're cutting their stomachs, areas that they will feel pain, but you can't quite see unless you get them to strip. And of course, institutions will be getting children to strip. So self-harm, yes, has increased. One of the reasons why it is increasing in boys is because of extreme bullying and sodomy. We have a few more boys than usual who are coming, and when we dig in and see what exactly is going on, you discover there's sodomy that has happened to them. And it's still not an acceptable thing and carries a lot of stigma with it. So they're not being able to talk about it with anyone, with their parents, and therefore they show up in the drugs and the delinquency especially. Or they themselves now become bullies when they do get an opportunity. So yes, self-harm has increased in boys for lots of different reasons. Girls, self-harm has to do with, a lot of the time, esteem, image. They're coming complaining that they don't think they're good enough, or they've added weight, you know, things like that. Whereas now boys are also victims of other abuse that's happening that we don't actually expect to be happening to boys, and therefore we ignore it.
Mm-hmm. And you know, as we are listening to this, let's just breathe in and out, because this is not a fear-mongering space.
You didn't get people grounded as you usually do.
Exactly, right? I didn't.
We just dug in.
We just dug in today, right? Yes. I'll hear feedback and see how different this was. But yeah, this is a one that we haven't done breathing in and out.
We'll do it at the end.
Okay, we'll loop it in then. Yes, but still we can still have those grounding exercises as we are listening to this. Okay, just be able to tell, as you're listening to this, how are you feeling? Okay, let's move alongside together. So connect with your emotions right now. Connect with if it's, oh, you are inspired, or there's a sense of fear or worry, of anxiety or perplexity. You're like, what are you talking about self-harm? Okay, I was actually talking to someone this week who was like, I have never heard of that. And this is a parent, you know. So it's for some people it's something that's new, but these are conversations we need to have. Being mental health, it's the last day of mental health month in May, and we really just wanted to make sure that we zero in on mental health related issues today. However, when we sent out the registration link, we asked you some questions, and I just want to, I feel like we can categorize the issues that came up for you, because we asked, what are your 3 top parenting dilemmas with your teens and young adults. And so much came out. Thank you again, all of you, for responding to that. I feel like we can do like 2 or 3 papers just coming out of that. Yes, because it's solid information. A lot of you, explained in detail, which is something that we're really grateful for. But one of the things that I realized is that we need to talk about this. We'll have more of this conversation so we can normalize the things that are happening. And by normalizing, we don't mean minimizing them. By normalizing, we actually just mean being able to say, we are in this together. We are experiencing this, okay? Because when we celebrate, we like to celebrate when our kids are doing well, but let's also be in this together because we are a community, okay? And it takes a village to raise children. So we are in this together, even in those spaces. So the 5 things that for me came out, one was communication. And I know, Shalom, you also went through, and you can tell, just unpack for us also if these are similar to some of the things that come out during therapy. So communication, a lot for me, it's a major theme, but some of the things that were coming out is my child is closed, they're not opening up, they're locking themselves up in their room, I don't know how to get through to them, they're angry, they do not know how to express themselves. What comes out is anger most of the time. Then there were also issues to do with discipline. Discipline also came up a lot. There are those who are just really frankly asking, should I stop spanking my teenager? Okay, or how do I balance between being firm and kind and also discipline? How do I kick in those consequences in a way that they are consistent? There was a lot of us who are saying, my child is not motivated. They're not taking initiative. They have that just easy, laid back, it's just like Maisha, what's the big deal? All right. So there was a lot of that, the lack of self-motivation. Another major theme was just around addictions and habits. So screens, big one. Drugs, big one, sexuality, issues to do with the sexuality and their sexual activity. There are those who are already active sexually. I'm reading these things out so that let's have a sense of commonality in these things. We really are in this together, okay? And that's why we want to be able to create connected communities so that we can support one another. You're not able to handle this by yourself. So there was that, just around habits, and then there was mental health. Mental health also came up in a very, very big way, mental health related issues. So I pulled out those 5 themes, and let me just read them out again for those of you who are taking notes. Communication, discipline, self-motivation, issues to do with habits, okay, like screen, drugs, sexuality, sexually active, and then mental health. Have I said all the 5? Of course, in there was a lot of peer pressure. There's one who just wrote peer pressure, peer pressure, peer pressure. And I was like, whoa. Yeah, so sending you hugs. Okay, so there was all that. So I just wanted to ask you, Shalom, is that similar to what you're experiencing in the therapy room?
Yes, it is. But you see, I think what happened is when the parents were answering that, they were answering them from their pain points. And so that is what I'm experiencing when they come in, at that moment when they're coming in. It's a lot of that, of communication. So you see, like for communication, for instance, the parent is saying they're closed, I can't talk to them, they're locking themselves up in the room. When the child comes in or the teenager comes in, even some young adults who are living with their parents, the issue is my mom is not listening. My dad is not listening. They're just too harsh. They don't get me. They don't care. They're judging me. That's the other side of the communication that they're talking about. When it comes to things like addiction, parents are coming and talking about the drug. The child is coming and talking about the relief. The teenager is talking about the relief. The young adult is talking about belonging. You see, so we are presenting with the same problem, but from a different perspective. Each person, yes, I'm doing drugs. Yes, I ran away from school, but this is why. Yes, I'm locking myself in the room. This is why. You know, many young people are asking, what's the point? If you're not going to listen, what's the point? If I cannot choose the career that I want, if I can't choose my subjects, what's the point? So you find academic motivation going down, but it's because, hey, what I want and what I feel does not matter. So you make me read. And you know, the funny thing is, that's familiar territory for me in terms of, especially like the studying. I remember being forced as a kid to study a particular subject. Once for the last exam, I just wrote my name, put my pen down, you know, my name and index number. And that was it. I didn't answer the paper. And you see, at that point in time, there's nothing my parents can do. So I understand rebellion, having been one of those teenagers myself. So we are coming and looking at grades going down, but they're going down for different reasons. A parent will call the child lazy. The child will say, this is what's going on in school. So yeah, I saw the same when I saw the list of the from the registration. The same things are presenting in the therapy room, but for different reasons, from a different perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think now this is the point where we go into the next space, the why. Okay. We can zero in around the what, and the reality is that that's what brings that we come to therapy because of a crisis. Okay. Yeah, it's rare that you will just wake up and say, oh, well, today I feel like going to see a therapist. So it's the crisis that propels us into therapy. Crisis. And last week we were on, you were moderating that session on anxiety. And one of the things that came up is how we are using therapy now as a discipline measure. You know, a child is in trouble in school and then they are sent
to see a therapist.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And you must see a therapist for 3 sessions, and we don't until you go back. So again,
and you see, like, what's happening with that? Because you remember, it takes work. Therapy won't work if you're not working. There's no way a child will change in 3 days, but then they're given 3 days out of school and they're told you must do 3 to 4 sessions and come back. Because they sort of assume that the therapist is an extension of the stick. You know, I'm going to come and lecture them about the decisions they're making in their life and tell them you need to stop doing this, etc. That's not how it works. But the more we make it a disciplinary measure, the less accepting therapy becomes to the young people. And therefore, they will come and sit down, tick the box, go back to school with a letter that says they attended therapy. But there is no change, no impact. Within another 2 to 3 terms, they're getting expelled or getting suspended again. Yeah, so we have misunderstood it. But like you're saying, if we go to the why, the top stressors that I'm finding happening a lot amongst young people, it's a parent relationship, the peer relationship or social status, and then academics. Now, when I say parent relationship, I'd like to put something here and underscore, bold, italics, etc. I don't know how to emphasize this. It's not about it is the parent's fault. So, I am not trying to say it is the parent's fault. I'm trying to say the relationship with the parent is not working. And remember, every relationship is two-sided, which means the teenager and the young adult also has a role to play in that space. So when it comes to parent relationship, by virtue of what parenting takes, you are from a different generation a lot of the time. Now, there are those, yes, I understand there's people who are teen parents in terms of they became parents when they were teenagers. They also have their own challenges because then they struggle more to be the parent and become more of the friend or big sister, big brother kind of situation. But you find, because we are both misunderstanding each other as the parents and the young adult or teenager, then there ends up being clashing. So we have teens who, because they don't get what their parents are talking about, the best thing to do is fight. Then we have parents, because they cannot tolerate the fighting, the best thing to do is show power. And therefore that relationship gets a bit murky and muddied by emotions, so to speak, because we're all getting into the fight. Now, there's also a lot of rigidity. Rigidity is from the older generation in terms of the parents are the ones who are more rigid and the kids are fluid. Today's generation is very fluid. They want to be flexible, and they want to be flexible with everything. What they wear, what they eat, where they school, what they believe, who they hang out with, who they have sex with, who they date. We are having 12, 13-year-olds dating. And when they say they're dating, the parent hears with their ears while the child is speaking in their modern language. And today's dating is not the same as the dating we did when we were growing up, so to speak. Therefore,
tell us more about that.
Vocabulary, we're using same vocabulary to mean different things, right? There's pressure for young people to date. If we look at all the stuff that they're watching today, relationships start very early. From middle school going up, you know, we have people having relationships. Now, crushes used to start early anyway, and crushes are still starting early. But because today's child has the vocabulary, when they have a crush, they go, they demand, request, or ask for exclusivity, and then they say they're dating. So many times when kids say, I'm dating, you ask them, okay, so where did you go? They haven't gone anywhere. They haven't done anything. They have probably just exchanged an SMS or two or a chat before the phone is taken away, because see, there's places where they can't stay with the phone. And they call that dating, right? They break up also very, very fast. Relationships are starting and stopping like that game. You remember the Animal Kingdom game? Where we used to say start, stop, and then, you know, you write a whole lot of things with the letter A. It's like speed dating that's happening, but at a very young level. Now, when you see that happening, as the parent, you're likely to get very frustrated and think that your child is trying adult things. The idea is to actually, and I think we should cross over to some solutions in some of these places just to give the hope.
Yeah, let's go back and forth, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you see that happening and you freak out and you're panicking about it, if you actually just pause to listen and understand and ask, what do you mean? How did you do it? Why him or why her? What do you like about him? What do you like about her? You're going to help your child think through what they actually like about this person. Because when we freak out and act on what they have said, then we are leaving them at a superficial level. And yet all of us want our teens to think deeper. We are hoping that our young adult is going to bring us a partner who has good character, for instance, you know, depending on who you are. I don't think there's any parent who's hoping to be brought for a boyfriend or a girlfriend by their young adult who has no moral values, you know. I'm not talking about them being Christian, Muslim, etc. I'm not just looking at the spirituality. It's just moral character. Are they decent? Do they respect people? Are they responsible? Do they have a work ethic? You know, there's certain things that we look for. But when we throw out the child who has tried smoking something, or we throw them out because, you know, or we punish them and ground them because their grades are certain way, we are not opening our ears and our hearts to listen to what is actually going on. And why I'm calling this the parent relationship is so that we give the parent the responsibility of initiating some of these things, because the young adult and teenager does not know yet whether they can. It is once they're invited into that space of, I'm here to understand. You know, even God says, come, let us reason together. You get. So if once we tell them, come, help me understand what's going on, the more somebody is listened to, the more likely they are to open up.
Yeah.
The more they are judged, the more likely they are to close up.
Yes.
So when we are seeing that, back to again to that communication thing that you're saying, when we're finding them closed and they're not open and they're locking themselves up in their room, that's a communication in itself. They're actually trying to say something. Sometimes they'll isolate themselves saying, I'm alone, you know, and they're feeling, nobody even notices me. Nobody can see what's going on, you know. They go and they suffer heartbreak. Again, remember they're having relationships early. So you'll find a 12, 13-year-old will go, they've gone to school, somewhere in between two periods, two subjects, their crush just tells them, I'm not interested in you. I have somebody else that I prefer to hang out with. They come home and the only thing they want to do is stay in their room and cry. And then you go coming down hard on them and they're being lazy. Why can't you do your homework? What are you wasting time doing? They're just trying to grab a hold of their emotions. Things were really thick that day. They don't know what to do about it. They don't know how they're going to face this rejection tomorrow. They still have to go to that same class. They probably sit, you know, next to that particular boyfriend, but now he has dropped her or she has dropped him. They are dealing with that. So if we only just paused enough as the parent to ask, what's up? How can I help? Right? We will get a whole lot done. Where is all of this disconnect coming from also is the voices we are allowing into our space. Now, I'm saying this at the risk of our voices, yours, mine, and other people being amongst the voices that will be called too many.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I can bet you, right now, if we went online, there's somebody else in this space of ours who's holding a webinar.
It's true.
Right? Saying the same thing or similar stuff to what we are saying. So which voice will I listen to? We have, as parents, we have so much information coming our way. We've got books, some written by Dr. Carol, some written by Shalom, and some written by, you know, all those other people who are out there writing books. We have too many voices coming in our heads that we don't know which information to believe, which one to follow, and what to apply as far as our parenting and relating with our children is concerned. What I like saying about all the information is, if you pause to relate with your child, they have all the information you need. The rest of us, we are just supplementary or complementary. Our children have all the information that we need. The rest we just are bonuses and a value addition. When it comes to the kids themselves, the teenagers, the young adults, they are also getting information. They're also victims, you know. The other day, I had a young boy talk about African mom. And I looked at him and I thought, what on earth do you know about an African mom? Like, African mom, we are the ones who are talking about African mom. Your mom, you don't even know how African they may be. But they are also talking with each other.
Yeah, and they have all these themes and forwards and stories around African moms.
This is how to behave with an African mom.
Yeah.
This is how, and now that's where now things like self-harm and such things come about. This is how to get away with murder, in terms of get away with, make your mom feel miserable or guilty. This is how to take your dad on a ride. You know, they are having those conversations. There's one time, one of my kids came and asked, how come you and dad are not fighting? How come you and dad seem to talk to each other all the time? Because they had tried playing us, right? High school days, they had tried playing us. We were not falling for it, but they had a problem with their schoolmates. It's working in school. How come it's not working at home? Why are you guys talking to each other? So even the communication between the adults, I like that you said, this is not just for parents who have given birth. It's for any adult who's participating in the raising of a child or a teenager or a high schooler. We are finding family helping each other, you know, an auntie who's raising a niece or nephew while they're in school. Those are still in the parent space. They are going to be played against each other. We are going to have biological parents being played against the step parents and other parents, right? In the blended family situation. So our teenagers are getting information from all over the place on how to handle these adults in their life. Now, look at how all that can come and cause chaos. And the best way to do that is just pause, listen. There's lots of activities. We'll share some activities later. I mean, examples of activities. There's lots of things you can do as a family to bond, as a parent and young person to bond, and you will get the information you need. Yeah. And
I mean, it really, again, zeroes in back to the parent. And so there's a block in communication. They have their own world. I find that our generation of parents, most of us who are here, have to do a lot more work than our parents did.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard because one, we're dealing with a lot of information that is coming at us. And what that information does also is bring us to a place of guilt. a lot. In fact, even for some of us here who are listening, there's feelings of guilt, like I'm not even doing that, it's my fault that, and that's why as we continue having these conversations, I always want to invite you into a place of reflection. How are you feeling right now? And may you release that and just receive wisdom, the wisdom that is needed for you to be able to move to the next step. But what you're telling us also is that if we went the extra mile in doing the things that we need to connect with our children, then we're going to see less of those behaviors. Yeah. Relationship forms the foundation of a healthy relationship. It's like the environment that we need for those amazing outcomes that we are looking for. And one of the things when I work with parents also is I tell them, sometimes let's just let's just pause on trying to fix the behavior. Let's just pause on trying to fix the behavior. That's the hardest thing, to let go, because we want to see these things happening right away.
The question is normally, you want me to do nothing?
Exactly. You want me, because it comes from that belief system that, we've got to discipline, we've got to nip this in the bud, and we have to see the change immediately. And that is, we bring in a lot of anxiety into that space, and combative, they become combative. And like with young adults, they get to that place of utadu, like I am an adult, what will you do? So being able to step back and begin to cultivate the relationship is one of the hardest things. And I know we were saying we're going to do the why and then the how, but let's mix all the tools in as we continue having these conversations. I think it's just making more sense when we do it that way. And there's quote that just came to me this morning, says, you don't judge the day by the harvest. You judge it by the seeds that you plant. And I think that's the same when it comes to parenting. What you're seeing now may look like it is the harvest, but you can step back. And my question and my ask of you is, what seeds are you planting? What seeds can you begin to plant today in terms of building a relationship? Between you and the parent, between you and the child, there's only one adult, okay? Or there's only one older person. So we are having to make more concessions when we're raising our children in this day and age, because we are sort of caught between, we understand where they could be coming from, and therefore we give of ourselves, we are being asked to give of ourselves more. But that doesn't mean that the child doesn't have a role to play. All I say is that sometimes to neutralize that acidity, we've got to put in a bit of the base. We have to come from this other end to be able to find a place of neutrality. But yes, we're talking about communication. I don't know what thoughts more, if you have any more thoughts, or you want to move on to something.
That was really around the parent relationship, with communication and other things being some of the issues that come about.
Yeah.
But because you mentioned discipline, I'd like to say just something about discipline. If we look at discipline versus punishment, punishment basically is, I'm inflicting a penalty for this offense. You have created this offense. This is what you've done. You need to be punished. This is the penalty.
Yes.
Now that's what happens in school.
Default for us. It's a default for us.
Yes.
What happens in school.
Yeah, because that's what happens in school. That's the way we were brought up anyway. Whereas discipline, on the other hand, is looking at training for correction and maturity. So even if the actual action may be the same, how you talk about it or how you communicate it is what makes it different between punishment and discipline, right? Because then with discipline, there's an element of consequence. And then when you're doing it, also you're focusing on future correct acts. You're not talking about this bad thing that you did. You're saying in future, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to think about it. Now that approach allows us to give some grace, because then that means that there is that first strike, that is allowed before you can actually say, now this is what's going to happen. Now, yes, there's a possibility of that first strike being very detrimental. So what do you do as a parent? Way before it has happened, start talking about it. One of the ways we should change ourselves is to imagine, who, me? Why would my child do something like that? Mine cannot. I will say it out here loud and clear. Even those of us who are in this space, our children, teens, and young adults, like for me, my youngest is 21. Therefore, I'm not parenting children, right? We are still shown things and we wonder, whose child are you? You know, like, who are you and what did you do with my child? The one that I brought up with all my knowledge, right? So there will still be mistakes made. However, if you pause long enough and focus on the future, I want to get to what you're saying about the seed. Look at your child, teen, young adult today as a person that is going to be around 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and having a relationship with you. Who do you want? When you look at your 15-year-old, imagine them as a 25-year-old. Who do you want that 25-year-old to be? Then start speaking that into them now. The same I was sharing, that anything we are trying to protect our children from now will be their responsibility in future. Therefore, when you stop them from taking public means because something will happen to them, they will be a very anxious 25-year-old because suddenly they need to take the public means and nobody ever taught them how, right? If you're not helping them support themselves, you will need to continue doing it, or they will have to get money from somewhere. So now when we see people compromising themselves, selling drugs to meet a certain lifestyle, sleeping around with older men or older women, you know, right now we have older women financing young boys' lives. So here we are parents of young adults, right? Some of us, that is. We have our young boys being seduced by older women because, of course, they are young, they are hot, their hormones are raging, and they can go for the night, right? But are you imagining that your son could be that person? Now, when you look at your 11-year-old son, do you imagine him being kept by a 50-year-old woman when he is 25? The answer is probably hell no. But what if he did? How are you able to help him and guide him to make the right decisions when the time comes? So the seed you're planting on this end is a decision-making skill. The seed you're planting is values. The seed you're planting is what we were talking about earlier, a work ethic, is respect, is those character virtues that we keep talking about, is seeking knowledge, is critical thinking. How do they discern what's true out of all the information that's facing them? Those are the things you talk about. So that when they come and they have been kicked out of school or they have been caught having done drugs, stop dwelling on the drugs. You know, the other day I was in a parents forum and I told the moms, I would rather your child came and told me, or your teenager, they were parents of teenagers. So saying, I'd rather your teenager came and told me that they're using drugs than watching pornography, because it's easier to deal with drugs than it is to deal with a porn addiction, right? And they were wondering how. I mean, sex is sex. You can just get off it. You know, drugs have a long-term effect. But we need to understand how all of that world of theirs is working. Imagine them older and then come back and parent them in that direction. Okay. What that will do is we'll look at our teenager and understand curiosity. I think a little earlier when we were talking about this forum with you, when we're talking about the brain and the development of the brain, teens are going to take risks. They need to do that. It's a developmental process. So come back and talk to them about how to be safe as they take the risks that they're taking. One of the things I used to tell mine when they were growing up, plus their cousins and whatever, was don't do something permanent. Stupid is fine, permanent is not. Now, if it is stupid and permanent, then you need to be thinking about yourself, you know, way backward then, way forward, and see, will I regret having made this decision? Then I'd like to borrow one of those phrases also for us parents. If it will not matter in 5 years' time, please don't give it 5 minutes of your time.
Wow.
so that we dwell on the things that matter. It's very hard to include every single example, but if we can put that around in the parenting thing and say, think about what will matter in 5 years' time, and that's what you give time. If it won't matter, don't give it 5 minutes of your time. Acknowledge that it has happened and try and move on where you can, right? As much as possible. Because then now, you see, we're talking about parent relationships being a stressor. When you work that out, you really help your child, teen, and young adult with a peer relationship.
Okay.
Because that is the next big stressor of our young people.
Peer relationship.
Do I belong? Am I accepted? Do they even like me? You know, and stuff like that. If we are working on the parent thing, the peer one will be very easy to work on. So I don't know whether you have something to say about the brain and all and how they develop before I get into the peer place. Like, how are they managing with their peers? Yeah.
Yes, and those are quite related. When you talk about the fact that, you know, they take risks very easily, one of the things we need to understand is that dopamine, the chemical that is responsible for you know, pleasure seeking and all that, the levels of dopamine are higher during adolescence. So they are lower before adolescence. They go lower again after. But they're higher during adolescence for many, many reasons, okay? Just because, again, adolescent years are our most active years, are the ones that there are a lot of development that is going on. So that means that they actually tend towards activities that make them, that are risky activities. And the more you do those things, the better you feel, because dopamine is produced, and then you want to do it again and again. And that's, again, the mechanism for addiction. So being prone to risky behavior is very much part of adolescence because of the high that they are seeking. And because already the levels of dopamine that are being produced in the brain are higher. And dopamine is it's a feel-good chemical. And who doesn't want to maintain feeling good, okay? And what happens is that during that time, as much as those levels are high, their brain is still under construction. Dr. Daniel Siegel, he talks a lot about the brain and development and all that. And he says that the brain of a teenager, picture it this way, is an accelerator. Think about a car with an accelerator that is fully functional. Okay, accelerator is fully functional. That means there are levels of motivation and psyching each other up and doing things impulsively. That's where the accelerator is. So they are ready to go and run. However, the brakes are still under construction. Picture that. Picture a car that has an accelerator in full force and brain, and then the brakes are under construction. So what does that mean? It means that sometimes they tend to be impulsive, and whatever impulsive, and sometimes they tend to be impulsive. They do things apparently without thinking through. So sometimes we will ask a child, what were you thinking? Yeah, what were you thinking? Why are you even thinking? Don't even wait for an answer. The answer is no. The reality is that the answer is no. Now, we're saying this to excuse bad behavior and risk-taking behavior? No. We're saying this to normalize the stage that they are in, to normalize that process, so that now we ask ourselves, how can I, as Carol, who has a 14-year-old, begin to help my son develop the thinking, begin to plant the seeds that we're talking about, to help them begin to think through decisions. Sometimes really that has to do a lot with, again, back to the relationship. When our children feel connected to us, they respond to us better, they feel, they listen to us more. So that's what's happening during that time. And again, with the high levels of dopamine, that means that they also tend towards addictions. Actually, a lot of addictions begin during teenage. Yeah, that is something that, you know, research is very, very clear about. A lot of addictions start then. Also, a lot of mental illnesses on set during teenage. Yeah. Sometimes detected, sometimes they are not diagnosed, but it's important for us to understand that also that's also when a lot of them onset around age 13, 14 there. So they tend towards addiction simply because levels of dopamine are high. And so picture this teenager who already is going through a lot of stress, okay, because of a breakup, a lot of stress. Sometimes the stress is not even physical. The stress is because they have too much information coming at them. We always describe this generation. One of the things we are saying right now with this generation is that they're the first generation to consume disasters live as they are happening. So there's a school shooting in Dallas. There's a Mandamano, and this is where they are on Gong Road, all that is coming at them very quickly, fast and furious, but they're not equipped to process that. We have a problem processing that kind of information as adults whose frontal lobe is already fully functional. So there's a lot of negativity coming at our children, even if it doesn't happen as a breakup, even if it doesn't happen as a child, them losing a game. I was just talking to parents this weekend. I was telling them, my son has been on a losing streak. He plays volleyball, and it's just one loss after another. So I'm always receiving a grumpy teenager, in my house after sports. But, it's things like that. But those are physical things. But there's also just too much information coming at them. We say that our children are more self-aware. They actually are not. They just have a lot of information about self-awareness. Okay, and that means that because self-awareness is also a skill and a muscle that needs to be cultivated. So I think also just understanding that, to just build a case of how important it is for us to step back and just breathe in and out and see how important it is for us to learn to come alongside our children as opposed to coming at them. The reason your child is stuck on that, is glued to that screen, really there's physiological reasons behind that as well. Not just they don't want to interact, they're just not being respectful and all that, they don't want to socialize. It's because the screen is a very easy outlet for all these things that are coming at them. It numbs them, it soothes them, it actually gives them the feel, it helps to activate the dopamine. Okay, it gives them a sense of now we belong. And again, if you look at someone like Daniel Siegel, he talks about the 4 S's of being secure, that for a child to feel secure, or a human being to feel secure, there are 3 other S's that are necessary. They need to feel safe, they need to feel seen, they need to feel soothed. Can you imagine the one thing that gives them those 3 at a go, at the touch of a button? Safe, it's the screen, okay? So understanding that there's a reason why they are going there, then it helps us step away from coming at them and attacking them and saying, one child told me, my mom came and said, this you just because they were on the phone for him, for her, she was like, what does that even mean? Do you know what this thing does for me? So also that, again, back to the relationship, it's how are we speaking these things? What are these things that we're saying? So there's a lot that we can say about what's happening in the brain. And then finally, and I know you'll get into peer relationships, but also what we're seeing is that the reason why, teenagers tend towards, teenagers and young adults tend towards peers, and they tend to listen to their peers more as opposed to adults. Again, that is something that God has designed, okay? He has designed that at a certain age, we begin to want to interact with people who are almost at the same level, because these are the people we are going to need. You and I are peers, okay? But then, it's something that transitions over time. And therefore, to just step back and know that actually, this child is going to see their peers more important than me, first and foremost, because that's how it's been designed, okay? Not because they don't want to be around me, but knowing that, again, that brings us back to, how do I continue to cultivate, to plant the seeds, for a good relationship and all that. And then they also tend to take more risks when they are with their peers. And that the research, and when you said, my child can never do this, wait until they're with their peers and they're psyching each other up. Even the most innocent child, the one who listens and does the right thing, is very likely to be influenced because when they are around peers. So they are more likely to get into risky behaviors when they are with peers. But again, we need to just go back and say, these are expected changes. It's just then how do we get in there? So this really is more your platform. So back to you, talk about the peer relationships.
Yeah, I mean, you see, a lot of what you're saying and describing is at the root of creating then what they're going to do with those peer relationships.
Right.
Sometimes when young people are brought here and they were that good girl or that good boy who looks like now they have turned bad, one of the questions they ask in the counseling room and in the other interactions that we have is, why can't my mom or my dad trust themselves? They have brought me up well. They need to trust that they've done a good job. So I want to say out here, there are parents who have done an awesome job, but their teen is at the place where they need to push boundaries to know which ones work and which ones don't work. So you're going to have this teen or young adult daring things, and you're saying, but I brought you up different. I brought you up better. Like you said, at that moment in time, it would be a case of, I didn't think about it much. It just looked like a fun thing to do. And therefore I did it. Now the conversation to have there is about consequences, right? And the effect of even weakening your willpower if you just do whatever comes, if you're not having an element of self-control. So you can start having conversations about self-control. You can have conversations about peer pressure. Our young people learn how to behave with their peers by watching how we are behaving with their peers. Our young people develop language based on the language we are telling them. The more we are seeing young people abusing each other in relationships, it is hinting at abuse that is in the home. It's just that we were brought up to hide it more than they are being brought up to hide it, right? So they go and they experiment with it a lot earlier. So you find that if you want your teen to speak a certain way, to stand for some certain values, that's what you need to be talking to them about. That's what they need to see you doing. How do they see you interacting with your friends? Do you even take a break? Do you love yourself? Are you modeling that self-care? Are you modeling that relaxation? Are you modeling the kind of life that you would love your young adults to be living? Now, when you don't model it, unfortunately, we have more competition now as parents. We are still very, very significant in our young people's lives, but we have competition because there'll be somebody else modeling it. There's a time we were laughing with my son because he was talking about how, I think it was either Jay-Z or 50 Cent was his role model. And I was thinking, my God, after all we have done, like, really? However, there are so many things that Jay-Z and 50 Cent have to offer my son that I can't, right? A whole lot of them. So how about me understanding what that is and partnering with them, even if I'll never meet them, and picking what's working and then talking about what I may disagree with, as opposed to saying, that cannot be your role model. Because like it or not, they're going to watch. That's why the influencer industry has grown the way it has grown. They're going to watch that influencer and want to do what they're doing. Because they are looking out, trying to seek, what's my identity? Who am I going to be? What am I going to stand for? Who looks cool enough for me to follow? So when you come as a parent being quote unquote old-fashioned, because that's the label that we end up being given, then you won't be the voice of reason. You will not be the voice of reason.
Right.
But when you approach your child in the place where you're saying, okay, you know what, I'm the mother, this is why I'm saying this, you'll be able to joke with them when they are young adults. And you say, I'm asking this question as the mother.
Mm.
So because I had a certain type of conversation about sex and sexuality, drug use and abuse, and there's a difference between drug use and abuse. And then, all of that, because we've had those conversations, when they're young adults, I'm able to check on them and say, hey, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. Right? But if they say, oh, this is happening, like now the one who's moved out and is living on his own and working, I don't remember the last time we had a conversation has rent been paid. Why? Because it's his responsibility, not mine, right? In fact, it is, hey, when can I come and you make me breakfast? I'm not going to be asking, where are you going to get the sausages? I will expect to find them, and not in a bad way, but because there are conversations we had, there are lessons. He learned how to save, how to cook, how to plan, all that while he was here. Now, when he goes and does that with his peers, he stands up for something. So we help our children have an identity that is admirable and inspirational for their peers when we start guiding them in that direction, including modeling it, not just telling them. The problem with keeping on telling them is that they will need to be told. And then when they go to their peers, they meet a peer who's telling them, all they do is follow. All they do is people please. And then we'll call it peer pressure. But we are the ones who taught them how to give in to pressure by pressurizing them at home. That's where I see the connection being, is that if we want our children to be brave amongst their peers, then we need to allow them to be brave with us. So they model that at home. We had talked about sibling rivalry. We need to help them handle conflict at home, because if they handle it well, then they will be able to handle it out there with their peers. When you affirm your child at home, they go out there and chest thump because they are confident in who they are. And therefore, they get into proper peer relationships. However, small caveat, that peer and social relationship is still happening in the face of social media, where, of course, there's both real and imagined perceptions, right, of what is actually going on. Whether it is success, whether it is failure, they are getting this idea. So if your young person comes and says everybody else is doing it, actually, it might be true that everybody in their algorithm feed is doing exactly that thing that they want to do. Now, instead of telling them it can't be true, not everybody is doing it, how about talking about the relationships that they have? How about inviting people into your space? One of the reasons why we are parenting alone is because we have forgotten the value of the village. In my book, I talk a lot about the village. Actually, when I get a chance, I talk about the village. If you can build relationships around yourself and your child, that will help you do this journey. Number one, you won't feel alone. Secondly, you're going to reduce the overwhelm. Third, you won't be the only role model for your child. And therefore, you reduce the pressure on yourself. You will have a teacher, you will have a neighbor, you will have a pastor, you will have somebody that you're mentoring. If you're 50, you ought to be mentoring somebody who's 30 so they can mentor your 15-year-old. We need to be passing on the values. So the village we build around our children will help in the peer relationships. Of course, we have strengthened the parent relationship. And then we'll do the third thing. There'll be somebody else holding them accountable for their academic work, and therefore easing the pressure that they have in school. Now, if I came and asked your son how he's doing in school, I'm probably going to get a different interaction than when you ask about it. Because you will come out as caring about the grade, whereas I will come out as caring about how he's doing in school. Right. So by the time we talk about what he wants to do and what is so frustrating, I can actually get to a place where I start saying, this is how physics is relevant, because he has nothing to prove to me and he's not trying to please me or shut me up or appease me because I came from work angry or tired or exhausted, right? So the village helps you do that. It helps you rest while your teen is still being taken care of or attended to by somebody else. Yeah. My daughter has been schooling out of the country. Now, when she tries to call me here and I don't pick up my phone, she knows somebody else that she can call. What does that do? It removes that whole Messiah omnipresent expectation that I may have on myself as being the only one who can meet her needs, right?
Yeah.
I have surrounded her with other moms who can actually take care of that. So if she calls and I don't pick up the phone, she will call a friend of mine and say, hey, auntie so-and-so, can you call my mother and tell her? You get? If we build those sort of spaces, we are teaching them how to do that for each other too. Okay. Because then they become the people to be called. Because remember those things that we were talking about, the trouble that we were saying that young people are presenting, they are not telling it to their parents. So can you imagine if you have actually taught them to surround themselves with peers of excellent values, not excellent, but great moral values.
Yeah.
When you have helped them have that life around them, you know that even if they don't come to you as a parent, they have a friend who's well-grounded, who's going to guide them accordingly until they feel ready to see an adult. So we are preparing and exposing them to villages at two levels, along their peer level and along the adult level, so that they have peers that they can talk to and they have adults that they can talk to. And that way you help them basically cover their bases depending on the issue that comes at hand, right? So academics are stressing our young people a whole lot because of the pressure to perform. Pressure to perform is coming from the school, it's coming from the parents, and it's then therefore coming from the self. Again, the voices in our children's heads start by being the voices in our mouths. Every baby comes, I don't like calling it a blank slate, but they come ready to absorb whatever we are telling them, right? And as they grow, they start owning what we have told them. Therefore, by the time somebody's coming to the therapy room and telling me I am lazy, I need to know what makes you think you are lazy. We know very well when they're having a hormonal issue, hypothyroidism especially, they will be demotivated. But if we are not understanding them physiologically and then we call them lazy, we are going to give them a label that they will carry for life. So there will be 25-year-olds trying to be given an instruction by an employer, but they grew up believing they're lazy. And which is the best place for that to happen? Within the school setting. That's why I'm bringing the academics thing there. Because the school is our teens and young adults' place of work. That's where they're spending majority of the time of their day, right? So how we help them navigate that, so how we help the teen navigate that will have a direct impact on how they will navigate their workspace when they are older. Yeah. So when you're asking me about the seed, if I want my young adult to thrive as an employee or as a business person, because now we are getting to the gig economy, the values they will need then, I have to teach them now. But their place of work is in school. Now, I'm not even going to get into that issue of boarding school versus day school, because society has made it that it is safer to have your child sometimes in a boarding school because you're not even going to be there because you're working hard to pay for their life. So we are caught in this vicious circle. But every moment you have, take advantage of it to plant, sow that seed to the fruit, the harvest that you want. I'm not going to plant maize when I want to harvest mangoes because it's never going to happen. So picture that thing and then come. Understand that the academic space is our children's and our teens and our young adults' workspace. Why am I talking about young adults? Because they go through life being told and having the bell ring, therefore have a very structured thing. And then we throw them into university that has no bells. In university, you will show up when you want to show up. They provide a schedule and timetable. You show up for classes, fine. You don't show up, that's okay, right? You will pay the price later. You do your term papers and whatever else. You have to be self-driven. There'll be nobody ringing a bell. But where will you learn those skills, if not when you're a student in high school? Right. So the solution to our problem is sitting right there in front of us because we have everything that we need. We have them in high school, we have what we need to prepare them for the workspace, right? So they're stressors. I'm just looking at the time and fainting. Stressors are the parent relationship, the peer relationship, which is fed a lot by the parent relationship. And then, of course, the playground in which that is happening for our young people is around their academic world. So there's a lot of pressure there. And also, of course, that's where the delinquency and other things are showing up, because that is their play area and their workspace. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know even me, I'm looking at the time and I'm like, whoa, but let's just then get into the solutions. We'll talk about our programs later, but like, what are you telling parents, one, and you know, in terms of just practical takeouts, and even as you're saying that, can we please engage? What are you hearing? Yeah, what are you hearing? What are you resisting? I always say, tell us what you're resisting as well. What is this that stands out for you, even as we continue now to get into how do we support parents in the work that you do? How do you support parents to plant those seeds? Like, what are some of those things to do and to plant those seeds, to entrench those relationships, to empower them for their peers? And I really liked what you were saying about having people in their village that do not have a lot of stake in the outcome. So the way I'll talk to my son about academics is different from the way you talk to my son about academics, because for me, yes, and I'm because me, I'm just thinking, no, I do not have money to take you to a certain college, so you have to work hard and get a scholarship and all that. And so the advice is so unidirectional. But when you come in, you're not worried about fees and tuition and all that. What you're really concerned about is just giving him a space to unpack and to talk about. And they need that as well. As much as we are thinking about the scholarships and everything, they need that as well. So we cannot underestimate the value of the village, I think, and in investing in those relationships to make sure that our children actually have those people at different ages. Actually, it doesn't have to be our age as well, but even someone who is close to their age is important. But yeah, tell us how are we supporting parents? What are we telling parents?
Wow, I think, and I hope they will be asking questions and making comments as we go.
Yes.
I think the first thing I'd love to say is that we are doing well.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you, Dr. Carol, came to parent my child, you would do so badly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Not because you're a worse parent than I am, but because I have been their parent. So what I want to say is, you are your child's parent. You are your teenager's parent. You are your young adult's parent. Therefore, you are the best that they have right now, right? Now, all those other things that come up, like I said earlier, are supplementary and complementary. They're to add some values, right? But you are number one. So let's start with the hope, with giving you hope as the parent of, imagine you're doing well.
Mm.
Now, all we have to do is try and do better where better needs to be done, and is to identify that. So I want to sort of like borrow, from a list that I have here of tools that teenagers and young adults really need to have. And one of them is identity. They need to know who is in their space, whether biological or, familial and all that. They need to know who are they and where do they belong, right? Our young people need a friend. And because it's very, very difficult for the parents to actually be the friend at the same time when they need to be the same ones meeting out discipline, that's where the village and other peer relationships come about. One of the things I found really helping me was inviting my children's friends into our space, because then I'm able to speak into them the language that I'm speaking to my daughter, to my son, etc. Now, when they hear what I'm saying and my kids hear what I'm telling their friends, then you see, I have said the same thing to the group. They know my voice. Back again to voice in their head, first being voice from the parent's mouth. Our young people need a place to call home. Many times, this threat that came from God knows where of get out of my house, this is not your place. And then when they're 30, 40, you're starting to ask questions, how come they never visit me? You kicked them out when they were 15, you know? You kicked them out with their words, and therefore they were waiting to turn 19, 20, and they move out and never come back. So our young people need a place to call home. Even if they're going and enjoying, and as we say in Kenya, kukula happy and whatever fun they're having, they need a place they can come to. Why is that important? If we have raised them a certain way and then they go out there and they discover, oh shucks, I've made a mistake. You don't want them avoiding home. You want them to be able to come to a place where they can say, I'm sorry, I made this mistake and this is what I am feeling. Here you are telling us to get in touch with our feelings. We need to give our young people an opportunity to do the same, and there's no place like home.
Yeah.
The other thing they need is a sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not growing up aspiring for anything or doing anything for anyone but themselves, they're going to live a very empty life. And really, we are told, loosely that connection is the opposite of depression. If you're not connecting with other humans, you're highly likely to also get depressed, right? Or you're not feeling that connection with other humans. And I'm not saying that's the only cause of depression. I'm just saying it depresses you when you're not connecting. As our young people are getting into adulthood, they need something to look forward to. I'm going to do this and get my car. I'm going to do this and get my house. They need something that they're working and aspiring towards. And what it does, it becomes that guiding star or that true north on the compass, that basically says this is the direction that you need to be going. But for that to happen and for all of that to work out, our young people need a chance to make mistakes.
Exactly. Very important.
We are beating ourselves up as parents when our kids make mistakes, whereas they actually do need a chance to make mistakes. It is in the mistakes that they learn. It's in the mistakes that they course correct. It's in the mistakes that they actually get to have a standing, like a farm or a certain values. So they'll never learn how to boil rice perfectly if they won't burn it or make it ugali at some point. There has to be that level, right? For them to get the perfect meal, for them to get the perfect speech, for them to do anything, they need a chance to make mistakes. Therefore, we need to be a bit more welcoming for mistakes.
Yeah, and I think that one, it's because, again, we have the picture of an ideal teen, an ideal young adult, or an ideal parent. And so we need to release the ideal. I think that's one of, let's release the ideal. Let's work with what we have in the moment, because there's that perplexity where we tell our children, I want you to get out there and conquer the world and all that. But then where will they learn how to do that if they don't have space to make mistakes in us?
Exactly.
Even teaching them how to speak up and speak out, they're going to push back against our authority for them to learn what
they need to do that. Yes.
But for them to learn what the limits are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's in giving them those chances that we're actually going to strengthen who they will become as they grow older, right? There's a scientist, a British science writer who wrote, he's called Roger Lewin. He said that too often we give children answers to remember rather than problems to solve. We're giving them answers to remember all the time. Do this or else this will happen. Do this so that this can happen. We are giving them the answers. We are not presenting problems for them to solve. So we are clipping their wings. We are disabling them in the process of protecting them or trying to give them the best, what we call the best.
Yeah.
But if they will not figure out how they're going to raise money to buy a new phone after they have lost the one that you bought for them, what are they going to work for? What problems are they going to solve in future? In fact, why do they need to solve any problem? That's what mom and dad are there for, right? So we need to be giving them problems to solve. It strengthens them.
Right.
Right? Then a key important thing that we seem to forget on this journey is laughter. Young people need frequent moments of laughter. Whoever said laughter is the best medicine knew exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Right? How will they laugh? They will laugh at their mistakes. They will laugh at experiences. They will laugh when you're laughing. Right? It just can't be that when you walk home, everybody's just reading your mood to see who do we have today. Laugh at yourself as the parent so they can learn how to laugh at themselves. Laugh at the things that are going on. Imagine things, create stories, and then laugh. Why? You remember that dopamine thing that you were talking about? Laughter causes it also.
Yeah.
It causes a spike in dopamine, right? So let's laugh as much as we possibly can, not all the time. And I'm not saying don't take life seriously, but you can also laugh seriously. What will that take? I like that you asked about solutions. Game nights. You know me, I don't think I can stop a conversation without talking about game nights.
That's you.
Have game nights. There's a value, this thing about the dining table. Once upon a time, we used to be told, sit around the dining table and share a meal together. Now, what happens when you don't have a dining table? Like in my house, we don't have a dining table, right? Mm-hmm. Find a place, find a space to sit and eat together. Be it the floor, be it on those sofas, be wherever it is, share a meal together and actually have conversations. Because in between mouthfuls, you will be able to say bits and pieces, and somebody can actually stuff their mouth to get a chance to think before they talk. And therefore, nice tip as a parent, if you're given a shocker by your child and you're having a meal, chew very slowly, eat, chew slowly, eat, chew slowly, eat, just, after all, you're eating, so you can't talk, right? Meanwhile, your brain is formulating an answer.
Or no answer at all. I tell parents, go to
just say it's okay to, I don't know.
Practice the I'm not shocked face first. Like practice, all of us here, let's practice how it looks to have an I'm not shocked face, because you're going to need it at some point.
Sometimes I'm unable to put on a poker face. Mm-hmm. So what I've done is helped my young people. Now they can't be children anymore. I've helped them understand that I am allowed shock. Right? Disclaimer, I am allowed shock, because those are things that are not familiar to me.
Right.
What I promise is not to judge you or react or respond immediately, but please allow my face to do what my face was created to do. I mean, if I sneer, it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it after, but that was my immediate reaction. I will learn how to put on the poker face, but that does not mean you shock me until I just wear a poker face.
Right.
So these are the things I'm saying. As much as possible, let's do this, and you'll find parenting working very, very well. Right?
Yeah.
Instant food, instant things never taste as well as stuff that you have marinated over time.
Processed, yes.
Processed over time. And therefore, one other favorite activity of mine is barbecuing. You know how long it takes to make meat? That nice, juicy, marinated steak. Now imagine having a parenting conversation with your child, young adult, as you prepare those things. You will even marinate it the day before, watch a movie, go to bed, wake up in the morning, put on the jiko, light up that fire, and do what? Roast your meat.
Over time, yeah.
And in between that time, you will have had all sorts of conversations about stuff. Those are amongst many. There's lots of things that we could possibly do, but I'd say first put relationship before rules. Why? Because like you said, in every human being, there's a desire to be loved. There's a desire to be heard. There's a desire to be understood, and it will happen in that space. Yeah.
So look out for the low-lying fruits. And I know you're also big on play and getting out there in nature and connecting in nature. One of the things we talk about is for us to even help our children and teens and young adults thrive is to allow, we bring into our spaces the low-lying fruits, the things that are within our environment. Sometimes connection is something as simple as walking into my son's room and just, rubbing his shoulders is doing homework. Like it's in those simple things. And we have to be connecting with ourselves for us to be able to give out those things. So I know that we want to talk about our programs as well, but just let me read a little bit here. Thank you, Florence, saying, I like that you mentioned about the village and saying that the parents are doing well. Yes. I usually say your best is enough. We already have wired in us what it takes. And sometimes we get lost in the ideal, we get lost in the information out there, and we forget that we really are designed to be the first and primary voice of influence in our children, and we need to actually just activate that. And then it's in the making mistakes that they grow, of course. And even for us, the biggest lessons we've had is through the mistakes that we've made. Ruth is wowing that you eat and chew slowly. Just allow me to feel and react. And then we talk about it later. Thank you so much for this. I think it's really important for us, not only just to practice the poker face, but also to be okay with the fact that we might be shocked. So give me permission to do that. I really like that. If it's not going to affect the teen 5 years from now, it's not worth your 5 minutes. Very good point to help in choosing your battles, and also to just help ask, what is the bigger lesson I want to teach here? What's the skill gap here? Is it responsibility? Is it thinking before you act on something? That's the bigger lesson that we want to teach, and that's what will matter in 5 years. Ruth says, I'm one of those who likes giving answers and fighting their battles. Need to work on that. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for speaking it out, because acknowledgement makes a very big difference. So keep working on it, and ask yourself then also, where is that need coming from to fix and to answer? And one of the tools that we give parents in our spaces is the emotional containment tool, where you become the container to hold space for the conversations, the container to hold space for their big emotions, for their frustrations and all that, without necessarily feeling like you have to fix it. I know questions are already coming in. If it's not, okay, let me see. How do I get my son to take walks or go into nature with me when he just wants to be indoors and be on the screen? This is without taking the assertiveness from him. Shalom, you want to take that?
One of the things I have seen working in that case is actually taking the walk and then go have breakfast.
Oh, you tie it with something.
Yes, there is a pot of gold at the end of that walk. There's something that you're going to do after. I mean, if they have already associated your walks with that thing that mom does, then you're going to be extremely boring. Then also, I don't know whether they're talkative or not. There's people who don't want to talk when walking. Also, maybe walking is not his thing. So is swimming his thing? Is, find what is his outdoor thing that will take him away from the gadgets, right? Where are his friends? A lot of the time, young people today have their friends online. So if he's not connecting, have something else that you will do at the end of that walk that will be attractive enough for him. Yeah, I have found that working with many young people. Okay. But then again, seek first to understand, why does he prefer the screen as opposed to the walking, and would he rather be swimming or playing football?
That's good. I can see we're already past 9:30. I would like us to wrap up. I know there's so much more we would like to talk about. Please bring in the questions. Thank you. How to undo remedial? How to undo?
Wow. And I think that may come from the point of, they're already probably even young adults, right? Yeah. We are told not to be friends with our children, especially when they're younger. Be the parents. You will be friends with them later. Now, when they have become young adults and you probably get to a point and you start saying, oops, I wish I had done this differently. Now you almost approach it as an older, wiser friend, right? Where you're getting into that, you're building, because you're rebuilding a relationship or you're building a new relationship. You're going to build it from the point of, I want to understand your world. Right? Okay, fine. I'm your mom, I'm your dad. You know, we didn't connect then, but help me understand how we can connect now. Right. Getting knowing that you may never be their best friend, but at least you can repair the relationship to a space where you become a voice of reason. So I'd say approach it as a wiser, older friend, as opposed to the parent. At that point in time, you've probably lost a lot of authority due to whatever the relationship was. But then if you get to the place where you're offering wisdom as opposed to just authority, you may actually get your authority back. So back again to building the relationship.
Yes, and planting it in small doses. So even just looking for ways, very small ways of connecting. I think what you need to remember also is that we are all wired for connection. And if the person who is the source of antagonism and everything decides to reach out, just if you make a step, it softens them one way or another. But then we have to be consistent in it, because sometimes you plant that seed, then you are waiting for the results immediately, and that will not. So be that wiser, older friend by reaching out in small doses. Grace says, I loved how you say that even us in the profession of helping us find ourselves, looking at our kids, asking ourselves, come on, that's what even me, I will raise my hand.
Completely.
Yes, because our kids are not, I mean, as much as we'd like them to be our guinea pigs and everything, not everything will work. And some of these things will work on other kids and it will not work. And allowing them to be themselves is very important, especially for those of us in this profession. And one of the things I don't give people is, you see, I have a perfect child and that's why I'm doing this. I'm like, no, please, let's separate these things. I will not present a child who is perfect and all that, because he is human and I have to let him be human. I like it. Voice and older friend is more doses to connect. Okay. Any other?
There's a book that was written by two ladies. Okay, some two ladies. It's called My Remarkable Mom. A lady called Shiko Karobia and June, right? It's a book that helps you connect with your mother, you know, just finding out stuff, where your mother came from, etc. Now, for people like me, like my mom has passed on, so I don't have that biological mom that I can sit with and ask those questions. But for me, I found it to be a very good tool for connecting with my daughter. Can my daughter ask me those questions about myself? Where did I grow up? What did 100 shillings buy? You know, it's a nice tool that, I think would be a good one to find for those who would like to have, and it's especially for not mothers and daughters necessarily, but mothers and their offspring, or you and your mother, whoever you may be. So you could be a son or daughter right now, a father or mother right now, wondering how did your mom go through certain things. So that's a book that can help. It's called My Remarkable Mom.
My Remarkable Mom.
My Remarkable Mom.
Yes, My Remarkable Mom. Yeah. So there's a lot of tools and resources out here, and we just don't have enough time to unpack them all. But I hope this has been a helpful session for you. Please keep asking the questions, but talk to us a little bit about these programs you're having, Shalom.
Okay, the one that is on the left is called the one for self-care from the inside out. One of the things that we noticed as we are going through this journey, there's lots of illnesses that are going on in our bodies that started psychologically. Like, you know, we were repressing a lot of anxiety. So we have survived by repressing emotions, repressing certain feelings, and then it starts taking a toll on the body. So we started having sessions. These are online sessions. Right now, I'm only doing them with ladies because we go deep into things that I don't think can work cross-gender, but I'm hoping I can get a guy who can do some similar thing for men. But we talk about healing and happiness being an inside job. Again, why women? Because a lot of the time in this parenting journey, we use our children as tools to heal ourselves, instead of actually taking that as a personal responsibility. So that's what that program is all about. And we have sessions starting on the 15th of June. They'll just be online sessions, every Thursday for about 12 weeks. Yeah. Then the other one is for parenting teens. This is really for parents of teenagers or adults working with teenagers. And it is exercise packed. It actually helps you transition to the place where you allow your young teenager, and not necessarily a 13-year-old, but you start practicing at 13. And by 17, you have given them almost full control of their lives, and you go into their life as the co-driver. Because you want, by the time they're getting to that proverbial, I am 18 and now I'm an adult, they have the tools needed to actually survive. So this course called Nice to Meet You, that's what it is about. It's really about looking at your teen through fresh eyes and giving them permission. This thing that we are saying of helping them transition into young adulthood, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
And it's self-paced, eh? I like that it's
yeah, this one is online, it's self-paced. Yeah.
Okay.
But the other one is facilitated. The mother-daughter session is a new favorite, because we are finding dare I say that even some mental health issues are being sorted by just going back to the basics of bonding with a mother. Again, why am I doing mother-daughter? Because I'm a mother. It becomes easier to speak into that space. Right. And I'm looking for fathers who can do something like that with the boys. I'm going to one day get into mothers of sons, Carol, or yeah, we'll figure it out. Maybe you can facilitate that one. I have a son.
I'm happy with that.
I have a son, we can co-facilitate, but my son is 27, so it would be parenting that young adult kind of thing. But the mother-daughter bonding sessions are also, those are tailored, they are smaller groups, they're more intimate. So basically they're seasonal, and I only do like a group of 20 at a time. So I usually talk about that on social media. And then the other one is talking about the books I have written. Eggs, Hammers, and Chili Peppers is one for parenting teens. The first 6 is for parents of 0 to 6 years. Yeah.
All right. And Wangari, if you're there, please put in the links so that we can get in touch, that they can get in touch with Shalom. I know that you have the link with you. So, and Florence is actually asking that, and Leopoldina is saying she's interested. So please put in the links as I also talk about this is just one slide to talk about our programs at Stawi. We have one-on-one coaching sessions. Those ones are very exclusive, just for one-on-one, and we really go deep into what's going on with you. We do up to 12 sessions as well, anywhere between 6 to 12 sessions, depending on where we are. And we combine still coaching and therapy. We also have parenting programs that we do. We have one currently going on. The next one will start in September. We just started the new one, the second cohort this year. Then we have outreach engagements, just the same way Shalom has. We go to schools, corporates, chamas. Then we have school staff training and certification. We also train for Stawi camp. So you can have your own Stawi camp in school, but you can also be trained and get certified as a Stawi camp captain and work in our camps as well. Then of course we have the Candid Conversations that we have. These are free. And then Stawi camp for kids, we have them in schools, churches, estates, and Stawi clubs in the schools as well. So these are the camps we have for kids. So Wangari has shared information for Shalom. Please also share for us our contacts, as well as how to reach us as well. Please let us ask questions. I just want to remind us, it is never too late to start. I think that's one of the things that we really go with when it comes to parenting teens and young adults, is that I've lost my window of opportunity. But we are wired for connection. Let's remember that. And we respond when connection is involved. That's why Shalom talked about parenting relationship. That really forms the core of what it is that we need, a place to plant the seeds so that we can get the harvest that we need. And thank you all for your comments, helpful and eye-opening. The person who is interested in mom and daughter, you have the contacts there for Shalom. Please make sure you pick Shalom's contacts. You also pick our contacts and reach out to us. We are having another Candid Conversations next month, June, I think June, the last Wednesday or something. And this time we are going to have a dad we are going to talk about screen time and managing screen time, responsible screen time management. So we're going to have someone who is in the area of just child safety, when it comes to child safety online, an expert in that area, but we also have a dad. So all the perplexities we have around screen time, we didn't touch on them here. You can also check out our YouTube channel, and you will find other Candid Conversations that we've had. We had a very good one last month on sexuality. Thank you all. We've gone way beyond the time that we had intended to, but thank you so much for engaging, for interacting. This this video will be available. We'll send it as long as you registered. You will get this video as a link, in the next couple of days. And please check out Shalom and the work she does. Check back Stawi and what we do. We are in this together. We are forming communities of connected people. Shalom, any last words?
No, just basically just to cheer you on, everybody who's listening and watching this, just cheering you on. Let's do this together. You're not alone on this journey, and you're already doing a good job. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you for your participation. And you're free to leave. You can turn on the video. You can wave. You can do what you need to do in the next minute, and then we are going to end, and we can end the recording. Thank you, Leopoldina. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Esther. Appreciate your coming. Thank you, Mercy, as always. Good to see you. Lorraine, thank you very much. Asanteni sana. We also have people from Facebook, okay, also giving comments. Thank you, Mary Munene. Asante sana. Thank you. We were going to end this at both ends, and please stay connected and look out for our next sessions. Hi to the boys, Mercy. Yeah. All righty. Thank you, everyone. God bless.